Hey, Design Her Travel Tribe. I've got a quick favor to ask before we get started with today's episode. If you enjoy the podcast, if you wouldn't mind to head over to your favorite podcast platform and leave a rating and review. It really helps more listeners like you find the show and spreads a little love along the way. So head on over, just leave a rating and review, and let's get started with today's episode.
But there's skills, the real skills of lighting a fire, go hunting, even just living in the wilderness that gives me a confidence that's not based on comparison and therefore cannot be taken away from me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. As an avid traveler, global nomad, and someone who considers themselves a citizen of the world, I want to say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. My hope in creating this podcast is to inspire you to take the leap of faith and to design the life of your dreams. For me, that includes connecting with like-minded individuals and creating a community of souls living their best lives out in and around the world. Each week, you'll hear stories and conversations from fellow travelers who have figured out how to incorporate travel as a key component in their daily lives. Their stories are beautiful and inspiring, just like you. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. So let's do this. Here we go. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to today's episode of the Design Her Travel podcast. I'm your host, Kim Anderson. And today have I got a treat for you. Today I have on the show Miriam Lancewood. And as you'll hear, she is a breath of life force energy. Miriam is full of life. She is a phenomenal storyteller, and this episode is absolute fire. Miriam is the author of the international bestseller, Women in the Wilderness, a story of survival, love, and self-discovery in New Zealand. Miriam and her husband left the world as we know it in 2010 and went into the bush to live. They literally had a tent, a bow and arrow, and a knife. What started out as a 1-year experiment turned into 7 years of them living in the wild of the South Island of New Zealand. They learned more about life than I could even imagine, and their story is remarkable. Like I said, Miriam tells a beautiful tale, and I think you're going to love this episode as much as I enjoyed the conversation. So, without further ado, here is Miriam Lancewood. Hello, Miriam. I am so excited about this interview. I have been looking forward to it since we first connected. So thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to Design Her Travel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's your life story and your experiences have been so fun to dive into from an outside perspective. I can't imagine how wild and fun it is to live it. But, you know, one of the things that I really love about your story is that love and adventure are so entwined together in all of the things that you have done. And so I don't think we can start on the adventure before we talk about love. So let's talk about the love aspect of your story. So you and your partner live this amazing lifestyle that's very unique to who you are as a couple. And you come from different places, literally different places in the world, different age groups, you know, different almost generations. And so tell us a little bit about your origin story. Like, how did you meet Peter and how were you like, did you have a moment where you're just like, this is the person, that this is the life I'm going to live?
Yeah, so I was born in Holland and in 83, so I'm 41 now. And I studied physical education because my dream was to go and work in Africa as a volunteer, you know, being really good and work away my guilt, as a lot of people in Holland are suffering from. So off I went after my studies, and unfortunately, I didn't like it at all. And then a friend said, why don't you go to India? Nice and safe, contrary to Africa. And you'll absolutely love it. So off I went. After my year in Zimbabwe, went to India. And after 5 months traveling there, I met a man 30 years older than I was. I was 22 and he was 52. And he was from New Zealand. His name was Peter. He used to be a university professor and he gave up everything and he told his colleagues, you got to live this stuff, not just write about it. And so he sold everything. He had this big skip bin outside on the street, and put all the rubbish in and he gave everything away. And then he went with a small backpack, not a big one, a small one, to live in India. And that's where I met him. And he said, you know what? You don't have to work in order to live. And it took me 18 months to understand that statement. 18 months. You don't have to work in order to live. And that was just completely contrary to everything I heard my entire life. And it was true. If you can live very frugally, very basically, and of course, you need some money. So earn a little bit here and there. Don't spend any money on rent. You can live. And Peter and I have proved it. We met each other now almost 20 years ago. And ever since the day that I met him, we have lived either nomadically or from 2010 onwards in the wilderness of New Zealand, because that's what we set out to do. And so we're fast forwarding in time now. And so we traveled all through Southeast Asia and even Papua New Guinea and ended up in New Zealand, his home country. And I had to work for a little bit to get my residency. But after that, we decided to do something remarkable. And we thought we will live in the wilderness for 4 seasons, 4 only, just to experience, every season, basically. And to live completely, as much as possible, off the land. So by hunting and gathering, living in a way our ancestors did, basically. But after 1 year, we didn't want to come back to town. And so that 1 year became 7. So to come back to your question, it all started with meeting Peter, who had such a different life, also because he is so much older than I am. So many experiences, so much wisdom, so much knowledge. And I thought I go with him. This is my one chance.
Take this. I'm going.
This is it. My window of opportunity. I got to race towards it. I'm going to jump in this window because, I felt it was my one chance. And I think I was right.
I love that. It's that whole you don't have to work in order to live. I can see why it would take you 18 months to grasp that concept, because it is completely reversed of everything that we're raised to believe in modern culture, so it would be an undoing of everything you knew. And so kudos for being brave enough to take that on. Some people wouldn't be able to unravel that. So that says a lot. That's a testament to who you are as an individual, to be able to moderate and just modify who you are and your lifestyle. And so here you are, you decided to go 4 seasons in the bush. So what was your experience? Were you already sort of hunting skills, life skills? You knew how to live off the earth? Like, what did you come into that experience with?
Well, I always liked the outdoors. As a kid, I joined scouting and all that. I knew how to light a fire. What else? I don't know. I knew how to pitch tents, but not much more than that. Certainly not hunting. I grew up as a vegetarian. My mom never cooked meat. So hunting, killing animals, I would have really frowned upon. That is very, very evil. But I changed my mind when it was in a survival setting. And also, I must add, New Zealand is very different from Holland or Europe. New Zealand used to be a bird island, and the British people brought all the introduced animals. But of course, they didn't have a natural predator. So all these animals just took off, and they became like what they now call a pest. So you have deer. We don't have no predator for that. Deer, pigs, hares, rabbits. That's basically what we lived on. And so the government is actually encouraging people to hunt. Now, that makes it quite a different setting from, killing the native animals in Europe. It felt very different anyway. Ethically, it's almost better to shoot and eat a possum than buying imported lentils from the East. But a possum doesn't taste like chicken or anything. It tastes very different. It's a very wild meat taste. But I didn't have any experience of chicken. So Peter said, this is meat. This is nice. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, this is my future. So that was quite an advantage of not knowing the taste of meat, because otherwise I might not have taken fancy to it. I might not have liked it.
So the first piece of meat that you ate, did you actually hunt it and kill it yourself?
No, that was actually in India when we were climbing the Himalayas. And Peter said, no, you have to eat some goat curry. But it was really tough meat. And I was like, is it always like this? It's almost like chewing gum. And I had to take it out of my mouth again and try again. But yeah, that was also equally tough.
I've had wild goat curry, and it is not tender at all. You're right. And it's like you chew on it forever. It's the meat that never dissolves.
Yeah. And I thought, is everyone dealing with this?
Yeah, is this the appeal? I don't get it.
Yeah, indeed.
And so here you are, you can pitch a tent, start a fire, but you're hunting for your own food. So first off, how much prep went into this? Like, did you practice hunting, or you were just like, the best practice is to just live it? And how long did it take you to figure out how to get your own food?
Yeah, so I thought I will go and buy a bow because the guns are truly evil. So bow hunting was for me. And also because Robin Hood was my hero. And so I went to the shop and I bought an intuitive bow. An intuitive bow just sounded so wonderful. So I thought, yeah, that's me. And I discovered later that just means they have no idea where you are shooting. So that's the most difficult bow to start with. It's just almost impossible. But I thought, okay, I'll practice for a year while I was working in a school as a teacher. I put up a target in the backyard. And every day I shot my arrows, like 30 of them or so. 3 times 10 arrows I had, because it's all very expensive. One arrow is like $15. So you're very careful with your arrows. But anyway, and in the end, I was pretty good at grouping. Now, grouping is where you put the arrows in the same spot. And I went to my friend, who was a bow hunter, and I said, well, I'm pretty good at this grouping. How difficult can it be, this hunting? And he said, you will see. And those famous words I've remembered for ages, because he was exactly right. Shooting on a target is very different from hunting, because the animal might not be at 20 meters. It might be up or down or running from left to right or anywhere, right? Or there might not be any animals. And that's the problem I had in the beginning. I thought New Zealand is full of goats, equally sort of dispersed. I had no idea that some valleys are full of goats, other valleys not at all. None. I had no idea. So I had to discover all this. And in the beginning, it took me months and months and months to even find an animal. And then I wasted all my arrows. And then in the end, I got one. And I still have around my neck, you'll see it, but no one else, the horn of the first goat that I shot with my bow and arrow. And that to me is a symbol of life and death, and how much we should appreciate that. But everything is part of this cycle, myself included. And one day I will just be bones in the ground if I get buried. And that's then it. So for me, it's a symbol of appreciating every day that I am alive. It's quite a miracle, actually, that we are alive, if you think about it.
Yeah, considering all the things that could go wrong or happen, for our existence even to happen is pretty miraculous. So it's a good reminder that we are a miracle. Life is a miracle.
Yeah, indeed.
I was raised in the Midwest on a farm. People around me hunt all the time. You know, we pretty much ate meat that came from our land, whether it be the cattle or deer, those fishing, whatever those things are. We knew where our food came from.
Wow.
So I understand the challenge of like hunting. I'm not a hunter myself, but I know that it's not as easy as it looks. Also, you shot a goat. So that means you have to haul it, carve it, cut it up, cook it, preserve it. So then you're into another lesson. Like, how do you prepare your food when you're out in the wild and don't have any other way to preserve it? So what was the learning curve on that?
Yeah, that's quite a process and very gory. It's disgusting. If I shot my arrows in the gut, the smell is just nauseating. But yeah, indeed, I had to learn all that. Luckily, the principle of skinning and gutting is all the same for every animal. And so, yeah, I hang the animal up from the Achilles in the tree, and then I can gut it easier. And after that, it's much lighter, and then I carry it on my back. But of course, we're living in the wilderness. We don't have clothes to throw in a washing machine. Everything has to be washed by hand. So at the same time, I'm also like, oh, I don't want to get dirty. I don't want all this blood on me. Everything is difficult. You can only wash when there's sunny weather, so when you can dry it. But yeah, all of these skills I learned, and I'm very grateful for these skills because it gives me a certain confidence, a confidence that is not based on comparison. Because if you think about it, a lot of confidence is based on comparing yourself with other people, like starting in the school classes, right? You're only good because someone else is worse than you. Well, what sort of confidence is that? In fact, it creates fear because the moment you're in different company, you're going to be maybe on the bottom again, like what happens in high school and then go to uni. But there's skills, the real skills of lighting a fire, go hunting, even just living in the wilderness, that gives me a confidence that's not based on comparison and therefore cannot be taken away from me.
I love that. That's so true because we think we're better or good because someone else isn't. Or so that's a wild understanding. And so let's talk about some of those things that, did it take a while to unwind from civilization while living in the bush? Because doing it and learning, like that's a whole different beast. But you're also withdrawing from the society that you've been around. So what was that like?
Yeah, so we left in 2010 and we didn't bring any technology. No cell phone, not even emergency beacon. Yeah, nothing, of course. We didn't bring solar panels, no electricity. Not even a clock. We did this very deliberately. We're like modern day Luddites almost. We're really disappearing. And with it, it felt like our future was one big white sheet, like the real tabula rasa, nothing planned. And that was both frightening and wonderful. It is so rare these days to have absolutely nothing planned. The rest of your life, nothing planned, right? Just a calendar that's completely white. But also at the same time, it's like, oh, that's just wonderful. And the next day, I felt, oh, what am I going to do now? Yeah, of course, I did a little hunting, but it was very, very little to do. And I had come out of a situation of working, social events, a lot of social media, all of these things. And suddenly there was nothing. It took me 2 weeks to slow down, to meet the rhythm of nature. 2 agonizing weeks because slowing down is not fun. You have to go through boredom. And boredom was the very thing I've been avoiding for all those years, right? That's what we do, avoid boredom. We keep busy. Boredom is a horrible feeling. But what is actually boredom?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's nothing. It's the voids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the space.
How can we be afraid of that, right? How can we be afraid of nothing? So Peter said, right, now you have to learn the art of doing nothing. Doing nothing. Not meditation. Meditation is something that will be easy. So I go and meditate for an hour. Not that we had a clock or anything, but meditation is something. Nothing is truly nothing. Reading a book is something. You try doing nothing. Hardly anyone does it. But we were forced to do absolutely nothing because there was nothing to do. And so in the beginning, it was very hard. I had to go through boredom and look at things, or what thought brings up. We call that the spiders in the corner. So the first winter, because we set off in the beginning of winter, the first winter was really hard because of all these things of the past came back up. Memories, traumas, and I don't have much trauma, thank God. But if you had, all of these things come up and it might be almost too much. So I'm not sure if I can recommend everyone to go and live in the wilderness, certainly not alone. There is a certain risk involved there. Yeah, that's what we experienced. But yeah, after 2 or 3 weeks, our mind was more in tune with nature. And then we could just sit at the river or under a tree and see a leaf fluttering down. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And then we're super happy. But funny enough, after 4 months, we had to resupply. We went back to friends, in a town. It takes 1 day to speed up again, and then 2 long weeks to slow down. And most people don't have more than 2 weeks holiday. So they will never experience the slowing down. Scary thought.
I love that when you were finally able to relax into just being, because that's really what it is. It's just being. Then you're able to sort of sync with Mother Nature's rhythm, which is we're supplied with everything we need, which is beauty and light and food and water. It's just we're used to forcing it into existence. So you were able to just sort of let it come into existence and appreciate that moment for being that's truly alive is what it sounds like. It's like you're really, truly in tune with all the things around you. So,
yeah, and a prerequisite for that is to slow down. Otherwise, you're not absorbing it. Not at all.
Yeah, it's wild. My wheels are spinning totally right now. So, because people can't slow down, especially in this day and age, it's like the world is getting faster. Time is speeding up. It doesn't matter where you look. There's a clock, there's a time. We keep these phones in our pocket, which constantly tell us the day and the time. And so removing ourselves from that is like a whole different thing. People are like, they talk about aging or we're constantly in the time loop. So there is no space. That's wild. And so how often did you go in and out in that first year? You said 3 months and you started in the winter?
Yeah.
Right off the deep end.
It just so happened because of my job. Yeah, indeed. No, I would recommend, start in the spring or summer. But yeah, no, it's just because I was done with my 1 year of working and we were so keen to get away. Before you asked me about the training we did before we got in there, a lot of the training also include, I forgot to tell, like cold exposure and walking in the dark. And all of these things, you have to harden up. And a lot of people don't realize that how soft we all have become. But the hardening up process is quite a process, yeah.
Yeah. I've lived in New Zealand for a year. I lived in the South Island in the winter. Like it's cold. And it can be wet cold. It's just cold. And so I can't imagine living in it, especially in the mountains of New Zealand. I'm just like, it's wild. So I mean, do you keep a fire going all the time? How much are you moving around? Did you have a base camp? Like, I can only imagine it would have been cold and uncomfortable a lot. And is that correct? Or were you able to keep some sort of comfortability?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm one question behind. You were asking how long we were in the wilderness. In the first year, that was 3 months at a time. Yeah, and then we had to have some supplies. So we had rice and flour, and when that was finished, we went out. But yes, it can be quite cold, wet cold. It's not like meters of snow or anything, not like that. It's an island. But yeah, we had a fire. The fire is so important, physically and psychologically. We had that going all the time. But fire needs a lot of wood. So half the time, we were busy with firewood. So hunting and firewood was always the two things that we were occupied with. But yeah, we learned a lot about wood. Like, you cannot just light a fire with any wood. And then we also made camp oven bread. But for that, you need special hardwood. Otherwise, you don't have the coals to go on top. You need hot embers. So all of these little things you learn by doing it.
And so what tools did you have?
Tools? Well, my bow and arrow, a knife, and that was pretty much it. When we had, at one point we had a helicopter drop with our gear, and then we could take a camp oven and an axe and a saw, a little bit more. At other times, towards the end, we walked the Tiaroa Trail, and of course then we go super light, and then we certainly don't take a axe or anything. So we adjusted a lot too.
Yeah, I was going to say, because firewood is a totally different beast if you have an axe or if you have to gather what's around you.
Yeah, so sometimes we burned whole logs. We just drag a log from the riverbed and put that in. We obviously don't cut it. Why would we? It's an outside fire, right? And we just burn one side of the log and it just keeps on burning. And we add a little bit of branches to it.
I love it. And so let's talk about the hunting and gathering. So you were hunting, but gathering. So did you have a knowledge of what was edible, what's safe, what's not?
Well, in order to get away from the sand flies, like the black flies.
Oh, those are the worst. Oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah, terrible. We went up, yeah, we had to be up more than 500 meters. But that also means that you miss out on most of the plants, the edible plants. So the Maori people, they used to live around the coast. There's plenty of fish and shellfish and edible plants. But we were up in the Alpine. There's hardly anything to eat except for totra berries and snowberries. And that's what we ate a lot of in the season. And because we have plenty of time, we go out, we say, let's go out to eat. And then we see a little toadra bush and we just sit there and eat for hours. Berries are very small, so it takes a long time. But yeah, those sort of things are so enjoyable.
I love that the berries are small, so it takes a long time. And that's what you have. That's amazing. And so if you could boil it down to your kind of a key takeaway, what's the thing that sticks with you most that you learned just living with your own two hands in the bush, surviving, thriving? What's your takeaway from that? Like, what did you hope to learn and what did you actually learn?
Yeah, our meta question was, what happens to body and mind when living far away from civilization? So that takes our meta questions take a long time to answer, like 10 years. And we found out that in the huge landscape of mountains, you yourself are very, very small, right? So you feel very insignificant. And your memories and everything about the past is even more insignificant. So much so that they dissolve. You don't solve them by thinking about it or analyzing. No, that doesn't help. They just dissolve like snow in the sun, right? They dissolve. And then, because there's no other input, your head becomes like clear. So there's a lot more clarity. And I discovered you only need one thing in life, and that is clarity. Because then you can see trouble coming like an arrow. You see it coming because time seems to slow down. You see the arrow coming towards your head, and then you just step aside. And then you don't get hit by all the challenges, right? Because you have simply stepped aside. And I think that's the most valuable lesson to guard that clarity. Now, if I go to the city and live with electric light, the worst invention ever, lights, then I cannot sleep early enough. And consequently, I get sleep deprived and I lose my clarity. And then in the morning, I want to eat more sugar because I don't have so much energy. The whole things go AWOL if I don't sleep enough, or if it's not silent. Right now, we're living in total silence, and yeah, that all helps to keep this clarity.
That you answered one of the questions. I was like, do you still have that clarity when you re-enter civilization? But there's a lot of distractions in life when you leave the silence into the noise.
Yeah, definitely. But we are now living in a small cottage. Some people will say right in the wilderness, but for us it's not very wild because we are 2 kilometers away from a Bulgarian village. We are in the Rhodope Mountains in East Europe.
So let's talk about that journey a little bit. So you lived 7 years in the bush in New Zealand, and then now you're in a cottage in Bulgaria. So how did that happen? Did you decide to just be nomadic somewhere else? Like, walk us through that journey.
After 7 years in the wilderness of New Zealand, we thought, right, if you walk around an island long enough, you go around in circles. So we decided to go to Europe. And we started walking there. And that was after completing the Te Araroa Trail in New Zealand. And we wanted to do more of this long walking because it's very exciting. So we walked from France all the way east. Eventually, we walked through Bulgaria. And then we saw that all these villages are like falling down, the houses. They're all falling down. There's no one in them. And we thought those houses must be cheap. And indeed, they were. So we bought a cottage for €2,500, about the same in US dollars. And unbelievably cheap. Can't go wrong there. So we decided to buy it. And yeah, long story short, after that we went to Australia and Peter contracted a kidney failure. First, he's always very slack with water. So he washed himself in really dirty water because water is not clean in Australia. And he got diarrhea and got dehydrated. And consequently, his kidneys started to fail. And this was very, very bad. And he was diagnosed first with acute kidney failure, after that with chronic kidney failure. And so that was the end of our nomadic life together. So Peter really needed to just have a place to be, to rest, to have a quiet life. And guess what? We had one in Bulgaria. So we came back here in our own little cottage, and he's super happy to just work in the garden and have a quiet life. Meanwhile, I go traveling, and I organize these expeditions with friends and go in the high mountains of India. And last year I've been to Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan.
Brilliant. And so tell us about these adventures. Did I see something about you organize these survival expeditions? Is this what you're talking about, or is this traveling in general?
Yes, in 2019, I organized an epic female expedition, like surviving only with rod and rifle. So I went with one other woman into the mountains of New Zealand for 3 months, 2.5. And we did that. But I only did that once because hunting is really hard in other countries because of the hunting license, firearms license, and all those documents. I might do that again, maybe next year. But in the meantime, I have been to the mountains I love the most, and that is the Himalayas. And that, I just go with a little bit of food and go over passes and walk for 2 months. And I did that with Sophie Hilaire, who has summited Everest. So I was in good company.
Very cool. So you have a home base, and Peter gets to putter and live his beautiful connected life, and you adventure and come back.
And rest, race around and then rest.
Oh, I love it. And so you've written a couple of books, like Women in the Wilderness is an international bestseller. So did you know that you wanted to write a book, or was this something that was just sort of came through you?
Yeah, no, not at all. I didn't want to write any book. I wrote, some friend said, why don't you write down one day in your life? Just one. And it was 500 words, 2 pages. And I published that in a little magazine called Mind Food. And luckily, a publisher read this, contacted me and asked if I was interested in writing a book. And like, a book? It took me 1 month to write 2 pages. I can't write a book. And then Peter, coming from a university background, said, you are mad if you don't take up this chance, because it's so hard to find a publisher. So if a publisher asks you to write a book, well, chance of a lifetime. So I did. And yeah, got translated into 6 languages and became an international bestseller. And we got 10 television crews visiting us, including Ben Fogle from the UK. And things started rolling and very fast.
Wow, that is a complete 180 from being in the bush to being on telly.
Yeah, from under the radar to in the spotlight. Extreme.
Was it like whiplash? Like, what was that like?
I like the extreme, though. It's that middle way that I despise.
You're like, I thrived. I'm totally fine.
Yeah, give me a 5-star hotel in Dubai for the writers' festivals, or a tent, but not a suburb,
That is absolutely fantastic. You have to know what you don't like sometimes to know what you do. So
yeah, that's right.
Oh, brilliant. So this book and these TV things is this now how you earn an income and are able to travel around so much? Is this kind of your bread and butter?
Yeah, I get royalties from the books, and I have workshops. We do a week, philosophy in nature, Peter and I. And with Angela Maxwell, whom you know well, I have done the Pathfinders. And that is for women only. And we teach them skills, physical skills, but also psychological skills, like how do you actually deal with yourself? Because that's very important when you go off on your own, like Angela did. Angela walked for 6.5 years around the world. She's my hero. But the psychological skills are very, very important. Otherwise, you will not get past the first week.
Yeah, I can imagine the first week. Well, that would be a very big reality check. Like all of a sudden, what you have to deal with is figuring out how to feed yourself.
Yeah, and sit by your own fault.
Yes.
You might not even like yourself.
You'll find out really quickly. So That's wild. And so I guess, we're pretty close on time. There are a million questions and things that I would love to ask you, but I think because, love and adventure are such a part of your story. So as a couple, what did you learn about literal survival together all of these years in the wilderness? Because some people might look at it as going backwards and some people might look at it as going forward. But what did you learn about relationship while you were out there together?
Well, Peter and I were completely dependent on each other. Now, when you are dependent on the other, you look after him, wouldn't you? Like water in the desert, right? You look after your water. And so we got into the habit of being quite friendly to one another. Now, this is quite a rare skill if you're married for so long or been together for nearly 20 years. Yeah, so we appreciate each other's talents. We don't try to compete because we are so different. We are a different generation, I am much stronger than he is. He comes to me to open a jar, Very unusual. I used to carry 10 kilos more than he did. And other people would say, well, is she the one with a big backpack? Yeah. He would say, she's much stronger. So there's no competition between us. He is obviously much more experienced, a lot more knowledge than I have. And we appreciate each other for that. So, if you can be like yin and yang, then I think you have a future.
I love that. I love we were friendly to one another.
Yeah, sounds so basic, but you try.
Uh-huh. But, it's wild to me that the truth is always so simple. We ignore it because it sounds so simple. You're like, that can't be the key. But really, it's like, be kind.
Yeah, you might not feel friendly, but at least act a little friendly.
I love it. And so do you have big plans for the future, things that, other wilderness that you're hoping to sort of live in, or if you're living moment to moment, but are you making plans now?
Yeah, right now I'm completely glued behind the screen because I'm writing a third book. So my first book was Woman in the Wilderness. And Wild at Heart is all about how Peter got sick and being very, very close to death and how he got here. And now I'm writing a third book, which comes out the end of this year. I'm very excited about that. Surviving in the Wilderness, it's called. So that is a big, big project. I can't think of anything else but writing. But I will go to Georgia and explore there because we bought this little cottage for €2,500. We can do that again. I will go to Georgia and have a little look around. I like to have a second house. And then that way we can be nomadic. Maybe in the end we have 5 houses and move around the world. All little sheds like this one, little cottage. Yeah, it would be ideal.
I love that. And I love that again, like the extreme, right? You're like, we have no house, we have 5 houses.
We're into real estate.
Yeah, we're real estate investors now.
Yeah.
Do it up. Why not? Well, I love it. And I know people can't see you at this moment, but I'm sure that they can hear the vitality in your voice and the life force energy that you have. It is just so pure and full of life. And we come across lots of people in our day to day, but you have that spark that I don't see often. And so thank you for sharing all of that with us today. It's beautiful to witness, beautiful to hear, and feels good to know that people are out there living lives that are true to who they are in a way that not everyone else is doing.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah. And so with that, we can move into the lightning rounds. We have 4 quick questions. The first one is, what is a travel tip or an inside scoop for your current locations?
We are now in the Rhodope Mountains, and I never knew just how cold it gets in winter here. We have 4 months of snow, like a meter snow, like 3-4 feet of snow. And it's absolutely brilliant. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow. See, that would be me saying, I'm not going there then. That's Thanks for the heads up.
You need to have a little house.
Yeah, that's true. And question number 2 is, what is a book that has inspired you to live this extraordinary life?
I think Thoreau, Walden Pond, yeah, because obviously, he really knew how to live with very little. He rather had a bean garden than working, having a good job and lots of money. But what is the sacrifice for that?
And question number 3 is, what is something that you always take with you never leave home without?
That's a knife, because I do a lot of hitchhiking and I feel a little safer with a knife in my pocket.
Yes, that's a good one. And I have to say that it's nice to hear that you do have a knife because you are very physically strong, but you still have a knife to help protect you. So I think women sometimes are a little afraid to kind of carry some sort of protection for some reason, but even you being strong carry something to help protect you. So I love that. And then question number 4 is, what is on the top of your bucket list for adventures or destinations?
I like to go to Georgia to look for a house, but also to climb a mountain with my friend Sarah Einhorn. She's a mountaineer and she wants to take me up there. I think I'm a burden, but she'd be happy to take me up. So I'm going to give it a try. With crampons, ice axe, all the gear, ropes, the whole lot.
Whoa, that's like legit ice expedition.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to hear how that goes. And then where can people find you or connect with you online?
Yeah, they can just type in Miriam Lancewood. There's a lot on YouTube. And I've got my own YouTube channel. I interview Peter sometimes in every season, and you can see the Rhodope Mountains. And I do a lot of filming, actually, just with my phone. It's very amateur. It's very primitive, but people seem to like it. So that's Miriam Lancewood in the Wild on YouTube. And my website is miriamlancewood.com. And that's it. No Facebook or Instagram.
And of course, we'll connect all of those things in the show notes, including links to all of your books. And I can't wait to read Women in the Wilderness. I haven't read it yet. And so I am looking forward to reading it. And so thank you, Miriam, for sharing your story and for meeting with me today. It's been so much fun.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for your brilliant questions.
Thanks, and happy travels. I absolutely love Miriam's story, and here are the key takeaways. Number 1, you don't have to work in order to live. Number 2, the miracle is to appreciate life every day, to understand that life really is a miracle and appreciate our existence every day. Number 3, many times our confidence comes by comparison. We are confident in something because we compare ourselves to someone else and find ourselves better. Living in the bush taught Miriam true self-confidence that isn't based on comparison and can't be taken away. Number 4, when you have nothing but time, your memories dissolve. You don't have to resolve them. They just become so insignificant that they cease to exist. With that comes a sense of clarity. And guarding that clarity is the absolute key. Number 5, the key to a healthy, long-lasting relationship is so simple it seems too easy, but it really is: be friendly to one another, even when you don't feel like it. The quote that I would like to leave you with today is from Miriam herself. She said, "In the end, every plant and animal that lived here knew how to endure, a trait that I too would acquire over the years." I think that's one of the things that I feel the most in my conversation with Miriam is that she has the understanding that she can endure. She's put herself in the most challenging of situations, which require literal survival. She had to feed herself and make sure that she had shelter and was as safe as possible while living in the wilderness. By doing that, she faced some of our greatest fears, and she came out on the other side knowing that she can endure whatever is put in front of her. I don't think we all have to go out and live in the bush to find that same sense of safety within ourselves. but giving ourselves the grace to experiment, to find safety within ourselves in challenging situations really is the key to being the best human being that we can be. Because the reality is we're all afraid of something. In fact, we're all afraid of many things. But finding that sense of safety within ourselves helps us endure whatever is given in any moment. So may you too find that safety and know that you can handle whatever comes your way. Thank you for joining me today, my friends. This has been such a pleasure. I love hearing your comments and your thoughts about the episode, so hit me up on Instagram at designhertravel. Until next time, my friends. Thank you so much for showing up and listening to this episode. I know that there are so many things in life that you could be doing right now, and so it means a lot to me that you're here. There are so many more episodes coming your way, so if you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to review and follow us on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know someone who might like to hear it, please share. Those little acts of kindness mean a lot and help more than you know. I appreciate your time and getting the opportunity to share this moment. I'd love to hear more from you. I'd love to connect, so reach out on social. You can find me on Instagram at Seafaring Wanderer. That's SeafaringWanderer. And then you can join our Facebook group at Design Her Travel Podcast. I would love to connect, hear more from you. Let me know what you'd like to hear more of, places you'd like to hear about, and things you'd like to know how to do when designing your life. So thank you, everyone, and I'll be back soon.